The restoration of territorial integrity, payment of reparations by Russia, the prosecution of those responsible for starting the war, the assistance of the international community in the reconstruction of cities destroyed by the Russian army, Ukraine's integration into NATO and other Euro-Atlantic institutions. This is how Ukraine's victory over Russia is seen in the United States. In Washington, a bipartisan draft resolution was presented by the US lower house of representatives. At the same time, until the moment when Ukraine becomes a member of the North Atlantic Alliance, Kyiv offers its own formula for guaranteeing security.
The principle is simple. Ukraine's security depends primarily on its ability to defend itself. To do this effectively, Ukraine needs guarantees from its allies. Previous guarantees given to Ukraine are not worth the paper they were written on. The Kyiv Security Compact would be different. Ukraine's core groups of allies with significant military capabilities can make a series of commitments that are both politically and legally binding. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, on Telegram. The closure of the sky is a matter of sanctions pressure, which should spell out specific actions that will be taken in the event of repeated aggression by the Russian Federation. But I think it will be said more broadly that is any aggressor who wants to threaten our territorial integrity, our sovereignty, this is financial support.
Reaching the borders of 1991 by the armed forces of Ukraine will help not only to restore its territorial integrity, but also, literally, to knock out the Putin regime. The deoccupation of Crimea by the Ukrainian armed forces, as experts predict, will become the Rubicon, crossing which the top military political leadership of the Federation most likely will not retain power in their hands.
The guarantee of peace is two key conditions. The first is reaching the borders of 1991 with the return of Crimea and the destruction of the Putin regime. Because as long as the Putin regime exists, the threat still remains. At the same time, if Russia loses Crimea, then it is unlikely that the Putin regime will save anything else, because Russia historically does not like those who lose. All the more so there are memories of the Crimean War and the shameful defeat of the Russian Empire.
In addition to Western support for Kyiv, the telephone conversation between Volodymyr Zelensky and Xi Jinping was significant. It was the first time since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. According to a Chinese government agency, the PRC leader explained his proposal for a peaceful settlement. The country will also send a special government representative for Eurasian affairs, who will visit Ukraine to improve communication.
I had a long and meaningful telephone conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping. I believe that this call, as well as the appointment of the Ukrainian ambassador to China, will give a powerful impulse to the development of our bilateral relations. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Twitter.
The conversation between the heads of state is not only a good signal for Ukraine, but also a wake-up call for Russia, experts are sure. For the first time since the beginning of a full-scale invasion, Kyiv and Beijing held talks at the highest level, and this may indicate that China does not bet on Russia's victory in the war.
If
Russia is so weakened that it will not be able to defend its territories, and China is becoming more and more convinced of this, then the reality is that Russian cities, which are now already written on Chinese maps with Chinese names, that is Harbin, can become a reality and not only renaming on Chinese maps. The fact that Xi spoke with Volodymyr Zelensky suggests that Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukraine, in the eyes of China and from the point of view of those who look at China, are already a partner.
Experts attribute the change in Beijing's policy to pressure from the European political community on China, including the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to Beijing. But jets of Ukraine became the safety warrants for tens of thousands of civilians, as fighters shoot down not only the enemy aircraft and hit positions of the occupiers, but also shoot down Russian cruise missiles. This is precisely the purpose of MiG-29 and Su-27 fighter jets. Ukraine also has heavily armored attack aircraft Su-25. It delivers several hundred kilos of explosives towards the Ukraine's enemies' heads in just several seconds. About a dozen frontline bombers of Su-24 class are also in operation with Ukraine. But there's one serious flaw of the entire air fleet. It is old. Obsolete Soviet-made fighters and attack aircraft still do the job, but Russia has been developing its aviation for some time, since the USSR collapsed. And to counter these developments, Ukraine needs Western tech. And you already know about which plane I'm talking right now.